Hi there, it's Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder here with the Phyrexia All-Be-One pre-release pack opening and deck theory construction of what I would use if this were to be my pre-release pack that I'd be playing at my pre-release. But this is actually going to be used for leagues, so we'll actually showcase the deck build of this in a later on video and show how this progresses over league. If you don't know what league is, I do one of these every set. We do this at my store at Gone Rogue Games. Is you open up a pre-release pack, you build a deck out of the pre-release pack, and then every time you lose 2 matches, we've actually shortened it down from 3 to 2, or every week you can add an additional pack of Phyrexia All-Be-One, and then later as the league progresses, we typically do allow people to branch off into other sets. I typically like to stick with the one set because I think this is the best way to experience the set mechanics. Why I like leagues, I think they're superior over draft and sealed, is you get to play with your cards for a lot longer time period, and if you open like a bomb that just doesn't happen to work in your pre-release kit, well, maybe down the road with more additional packs, it actually will be useful. So I'm going to give you some examples of how league progresses. I'm going to show you my Brothers War Leagues and how they turned out after the duration of the league, and they actually turned out to really fun decks, and this is why I highly encourage you to start one of these at your local game store, a league, or if you just have a play group of, you know, like 4 to 8 people, 10 people, I don't know. I mean, actually, the sky's the limit how many people can be in the league, the more the merrier. You can do this with your own play group, and it's a very, very fun experience. I think that leagues are the perfect medium for experiencing a collectible card game like Pokemon, Flesh and Blood, and even Magic the Gathering. They're super, super fun because you get to play with cards and strategies that you would never play in or just don't have enough time or luck to have the synergies or combinations in either sealed or draft, or they're just not powerful enough for standard. And with the power creep just through the roof, and Wizards continually picking winners and losers for standards, there are a lot of fun cards that just get pushed out. You just never see the light of day. And League, they actually have a nice little home in League with the set mechanics. One of the things that I have to give credit to Wizards of the Coast is they've been just knocking it out of the park with like some of their set designs as far as limited is concerned. But again, it's oftentimes it's so there are only sometimes that these synergies actually see play in limited, based on the fact that like an uncommon might work with a rare. So what's the statistical probability that you're actually open up that uncommon with that rare? You kind of get with the gist of what I'm going at. League gives you a lot of time to experience these decks, and one of them that I'm going to show you first is this blue-red. Is I actually figured out how to pilot this deck later on and figured out how to tune this deck because I was utilizing cards that I thought would be good, and they ended up being quite weak because of how it kind of interacted with the other decks, or how the curve, how, you know, all those type of stuff. That's the beauty of League, is you get to figure that out as you go. So before we open this Phyrexia All-Be-One, I hope you can stick with me here. I hope I don't get everyone attention span gone. You can skip ahead to just see the Phyrexia All-Be-One opening, but I want to show you the decks I came up with League. This one was because I ended up getting lucky and getting the 4 third path iconoclasts. So my first packs did have 2 of them, and then one of my very first weekly packs, I got the 3rd one. I finally got the 4th one in my last pack to finish off the deck. So, you know, this goes on for over 6 weeks, so you end up getting quite a bit of packs to work from. But this was a card that I wanted to focus on, and was also able to get 2 levitating statues. Now, we do typically use set boosters, so that's why you get a lot of uncommons using set boosters. I actually had a lack of commons, and there were some commons that I wanted more of that never seemed to get, so I probably should have opened up a few more draft boosters to get those specific commons. But this was kind of the gist of it, and when I was first making this deck, I was trying to make it work with some other uncommons that I pulled. One is like the Yoshin Soldier guy that makes all your soldiers +1/+1 because this guy's spitting out, but you have to add white at that point. And I had the Urza that also could spit out soldier tokens and stuff, but it was just so clunky that I cut down to just the blue-red. I also had the red-white guy that whenever a creature enters the battlefield, something gets +2/+0. So I'm like, oh, I can get a third path iconoclast and start casting a bunch of spells and pumping something up. And in theory, the deck should work, but how it played out, it was just miserable. This deck was awful, lost a lot of games with this one, and yeah, I finally figured out what made a good kind of tempo with this strategy. So that was kind of the shell, was either the statues or the 3rd path iconoclast getting super buff, or you're going wide or going big, and then winning the game that way. Some other creatures that were in this deck were like a Stone Seeker, only had 1 of them. The combat crews are really cool in this deck because they just chump blocked, so they just got you to get to the late game, and so they're super good with that because they can block once and then sack and then kind of cantrip themselves. Only got one of the Scrap Masters. They worked really well. Some of these Unearth cards we had. Wing Commando, I put a lot more, had a lot more of these guys, ended up just with one of them. It's actually like my last playable card in this deck. I probably would end up cutting it if I got anything else that's stronger, like more spells. The Pentagon Strong Bulls, these end up being super good too because they're a way to actually push through damage with your Iconoclast. The Phyrexian Dragon Engine, this is kind of a late edition that I got one in my last packs, but it's super good with refilling up the hand and just being like a good card that trades with stuff. And the Hercule Master Wizard, this was another card that was super, super strong in this deck with being able to find a lot of your instant sorceries off each other. And of course, artifacts. Never actually got to see this card because this was my last pack I opened and never saw it once. So we won't talk about the Foundry Inspector, but this would have worked incredibly well in the deck. This Cinder Moth put in a lot of work. And then only, unfortunately, one Might Stone Animation would have been super good to have more of them in this deck because it was just a good card with the cards I'm going to show coming up. So the other thing that I had in this deck was the Hulking Metamorph. These were really good at either copying the Third Path Iconoclast or the statues, and had 3 of those. And then this is where the deck is kind of juicy with the Iconoclast. We had 2 Curates, 2 Mishra's Research Desks, a Chromatic Star, 2 Elsewhere Flasks, Energy Refractors of 4 of. I actually had 5 of them from my pulls, but I decided to keep it more like constructed legal and cut the 5th. You don't have to in League because it's considered limited. And then kind of the finisher with the Iconoclast is the Mishra's Onslaught. So a lot of times I'd build a big board presence, swing in with everything, and then just cast a Mishra's Onslaught to finish off the game. And unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of removal in this package, but there was some good removal to at least take care of like my opponent's bonkers strats. This deck ended up being pretty fun, and like it did. It took a lot more skill level to pilot of figuring out like how to actually play this deck, when to trade, when to run removal spells and whatnot. And I think I got better as time went on by piloting the deck. Now this was the bonkers one that started off absolutely insane, and then ended up kind of petering off. Well, not really petering off because it's still super strong going towards the end of the league. But had some really cool cards in here. I'll just show you the curve real quick. So let me just kind of spread through this real quickly. They had a ton. Like this Meticulous Excavation had some fun little like ways to grind out the game. But I had a ton of removal. Power Stone's Fracture, Static Nets, Prison Sentence. Like Black-White is just full of removing every threat your opponents actually put out. A Go for the Throat, 3 Disfigures, Gruesome Realization. This card is actually bonkers good in this format, either drawing you cards or getting rid of negative creatures with toughness 1. And there's a lot of in the format. The Soul Partition, giving some of the commander attacks, was super good at instant speed, slowing things down. I end up having 2 Hero of Dunes, which was sort of my finisher too, because it got back a creature that oftentimes my opponent had to deal with, and then pumped it up. Lauren Disciple History, another way to start getting my threats back. Lauren of the Third Path, which is super strong in this format. And then the 2 things. So my initial previous pack had these suckers in them. This was one of the most bonkers packs ever with the triple mythic on color, 2 Flesh Gorgers, and a Yawgmoth Praetor. And then the rest of the creatures were just super, super efficient with what they did, like a bunch of bears, 2 Misery Shadows. One of the last ones came in the last pack, so I didn't get to see 2 ever. But it was just a really, really strong deck within being able to get back the threats if they actually took care of them with the Emergency Wealth and the Recommission. So really, really fun. The Black-White deck, I don't think I lost the game with this sucker because it was just super powerful. But it was really, really fun experience. And man, Brothers War, all I can say, was a knockout of the park for this particular league. What I've really liked the direction of how Magic the Gathering has gone is they've got rid of a lot of so here's a good example, like sideboard cards end up having like more modes to them, so they don't feel so sideboardy. They're something you can easily justify as being like a main board. Like Emergency Weld, for example, return a creature and putting a 1/1 out. Like they're giving utility to cards that are typically haven't been able to see a lot of play. You don't see any like Gray Ogres anymore, or the Gruesome Realization, for example, gives you 2 modes that are always both are going to be relevant. Those type of stuff. Adding like Cycling-esque type cards to sideboard cards. That thing is like a good step forward for Magic the Gathering Limited, because it allows you to play these type of cards that are super good when they're good, but then they're not dead cards when they're, don't have a target or whatnot. So anyway, I hope you're still with me now that I've rambled on about League forever here. I highly, highly encourage you to set it up with your local game store. It's good for your local game store too, so if you do run a local game store, this is a great way to sell packs, because people, and it's such an awesome experience too, because it makes you so excited to open up a new pack. Because as someone that's in their adulthood, you can afford any card. You just build a standard deck, you net deck, it's just kind of a much more boring experience on like they can construct it into things. And then limited, again, you play a limited, one time in a tournament, and then you got to throw away your cards basically because they're useless after that. League goes on for over a month. Really, really fun. All right, so the dice are going back to these black backgrounds with colors in them. So we get the yellow one, which I think is supposed to represent white. Kind of cool with the Phyrexian symbol there. And let's see what this is actually brand new to me. So some of these cards I'm not going to be too familiar with. This is the Argentum Masticore. It has first strike, protection from multicolored, 5/5 for 5, and the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you discard a card. When you discard a card this way, destroy target line permanent opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to mana fill. Whew. So this card is super powerful, and it can go in any deck. It's got protection multicolored, which might be relevant. Probably not in this set, because there doesn't seem to be that much multicolored. The first strike's super relevant, being a 5/5 for 5. And then discarding the card gives you that upside, which being able to destroy anything out. So as long as you can keep your hand kind of full of stuff, you're going to get a lot of value out of this Argentum Masticore. So super good card for the limited environment for sure. I don't think it's much. It's that great standard play. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. But yeah, it just seems like a liability at the moment in standard with so much removal centric being the name of the game. Oh, so we have Forge Hammer Centurion, a 3/2. Whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter, and then you can remove. You may remove 2 oil counters when it attacks. You do target creature can't block. So kind of a nice little filler card. Toxic 1/1, toxic 3/1. So we got 2 toxic cards. We got nice little trampler that gets plus X2, where X is the amount of oil counters. So oil counter is going to matter. Toxic's going to matter. When this card dies, it proliferates. So proliferates is back to proliferate those toxic counters and the oil counters. We got the Furnace, which enters battlefield tapped, and you can sack it to draw a card. These are actually pretty sweet. Yeah, I actually like these type of cards, especially for limited. The Kinsmith. You may search your library for a mirror card, reveal it, and put in your hand. 4 mana for 3/1. So we saw this with the what did we see? The assembly workers in the last set. So now they're doing with mirrors, whatever they're called. A lot of red cards in this one. Enters the battlefield with 2 oil counters. Remove an oil counter to discard a card to draw a card. And then we got the Dross Pits. An Infectious Bite, which is a fight. Not quite a fight, just deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And each opponent gets a poison counter. So kind of cool. You get a fight and get a poison counter, and then you can proliferate your opponent to death. With the Trawler Drake, enters battlefield with an oil counter, and gets +1 for each oil counter on it. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter. So it's a nice little way to either move oil counters over, or, it's going to start getting big. So it's kind of like the Levitating Statue in our last deck. See, the Urbrass Anointer. When enters the battlefield, deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of permanents you control with oil counters on them. It's a 4/2, so definitely wants the oil. We got a lot of oils. We got the showcase here with the Caramunix, the Rat King. So other rats you control have Toxic 1, and when it enters the battlefield, you may look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal any number of rat cards from among them, and put the revealed cards into your hand, but the rest. So this is why the rats all went up, huh? So this whole thing, I need to get back to my Rogue Market channel and kind of like looking at things coming out to then seeing what cards are going to go up. I did notice like rat colonies and those type of cards went through the roof, and this is probably why. So this guy might be actually pretty cool. I mean, it's a 3/3 with Toxic 1 for 3 mana. It's pretty decent. Didn't see any other rats, though. We had a Horror and an Insect. Yeah, no rats here. So we have the Gleeful Demolition. Don't know how. Looks like this is another artifact-heavy set. So this probably will be main boardable. Destroy an artifact. If you controlled that artifact, create 3 red 1/1. Oh, cool. It's Kadatha's Rebirth almost. That's cool. Yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. So not proper playable because it's uncommon, but yeah. So any artifact that wants to die, it's really good on. So thinking like Chromatic Star in the last one is quite good because you get a card and get 3 goblins, get that swamp, and we get a Phyrexian Beast. All right. So a lot of red cards to work with out of that one, but didn't see anything that stood out too much. So Annihilating Glare, which you have to pay for or sacrifice an artifact creature to destroy target creature or planeswalker for 1 mana or sacrifice. So 5 mana to destroy anything sorcery speed, 1 mana if you sacrifice an artifact creature. So again, if there's artifacts in this deck or in this set that want to be sacrificed, this is a good one. And most sets have had this sort of theme lately. So getting with standard, this is kind of cool because it could go in the artifact sacrifice deck that is going around. But there already is, I think there's some better ones in this one. No, this one might actually be just as cost efficient. I think it's 6s because I think it's very similar to the ones that exist. Bring the Ending. You counter a spell unless it's control plays 2, or counter it if they are corrupt or have 3 or more poison counters. All right, so the Carnivorous Canopy. Destroy an artifact, enchantment, or creature flying. If that permanent is mana value 3 or less, you get a proliferate. So artifact, enchantment, or creature flying is probably pretty relevant in an artifact set, so I would say this is main boardable. Sorcery Speed is a little bit weird, though. We get more of the oil theme here. So it can target creature can haste by removing an oil counter. And this one enters with 2 oil counters, so pretty good. Duress, the Chrome Prowler. You can tap a creature and it comes into play. These are actually pretty good with flash. This gives it a lot more... I mean, this has pseudo haste on it because you can flash it in, tap something down, and then attack in. The Ruthless Predation, another fight, +1/+2 in fight, which is pretty good. Very similar to the Epic. Isn't this almost the exact same thing? +1/+2 in fight. Isn't that the other one did? Epic Confrontation? Or is that instant speed? I don't know. The Blightbelly Rat. So we did get a rat that goes with a rat. Dies, you proliferate. Toxic 1. Pretty cool. Maybe we'll try to make rats work. We have the Phyrexian Wizard. Putting it so enters the battlefield, put up to 1 target insert sorcery from your graveyard on top of your library. Too bad it's not in your hand. Top of the library is kind of weaker because it's not card advantage at that point. A flying Toxic 1 enters the battlefield, and a target creature you control with Toxic gets +1/+1 in flying. Kind of weird with Toxic though, because you're going to be trying to push through Toxic. It's kind of awkward. All right, so draw 2 cards. So it's just like an upside to, no, I think Divination. If they're have 3 poison counters, just 1. We have the 2 mana, the Halberd. As long as it's your turn, equipped creature has first strike and trample. It creates a 2/2 rebel creature when it comes into play. So attached to it. So it's a bear. It's a bear with first strike and trample on your turn, then you can equip it over for 3. We got a mythic coming up. We have the Shielder's Edict. This is a card I did see in some of the previews. Opponent sacrifices a non-token creature, a creature token, or a planeswalker. So it's usually pretty effective for what you want your opponents to do. So what I like about this Edict effect is they can't just sacrifice a token. You can force them to sacrifice a non-token, because a lot of decks right now, they get around it by... there's some good sacrifice. Like, getting rid of Shielded is a bit weird, because a lot of removal doesn't hit Shielded that well, and they just sacrifice a token instead of, like, the Shielded. This could get around it. I'm thinking about the white-black decks in Standard. Alright, the Staff of Completion. 3 mana to pay 1 life, destroy target permanent you own. Pay 2 life to add 1 mana of any color. Pay 3 life to proliferate. Pay 4 life to draw a card. And pay 5 to untap. So I'm sure that people might figure out some infinite combos with this card, possibly. I'm already seeing, like, I guess you're just untapping the Staff of Completion. So, yeah, I'd be pretty tough to... We'll figure something out here with pay 3 life, proliferate, put things on, like, Astral Cornucopia, and then you could untap, and then, I don't know. I don't know what this card's going to be good for. And what is this, a swamp? This is one of those Phyrexian riding swamps. And a Rebel. Rebel without a cause. We have the Phyrexian Might here. There's a token in the back here. Another Duress here. Which, the Chrome Prowler, we've seen this one, the Basilica Shepherd. This one enters the battlefield to create 2 1/1 Might artifact creatures, and with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. So it's putting out, it doesn't have Toxic itself, though. The Spore Singer. Creature gets +2/+2 and Vigilance on turn. So these are really strong on curve with bears. So you make a bear 4/4, or you proliferate. So it can work with counters or... But what I really wish this one would have done is put a +1 on the counter on a creature or proliferate, because then these would have synergized off each other. But anyway. The Forgehammer Centurion, we've seen this one with it making things not block. We got the Insect again. We got Death Touch Indestructible with Offer Immortality. Toxic 3 for haste, for a 4/4 haster. And we have the Skull Bomb to sacrifice to draw a card, or a creature can get +3 and trample until turn and draw a card. So, okay, cool. You can draw a card for 1 or draw a card for 3 and Giant Growth Trample on the Maze Skull Bomb, but it's got to be a sorcery speed. Pretty cool. We got the Fisher. Enters the battlefield, draw a card, then discard a card. 4/3 flying for 5 mana. The Tivar Stand, hexproof, indestructible until end of turn. So far, these packs, man, I haven't seen like any. A good thing is we have like 2 cards in Artifact that I think are really good. But I mean, we have this oil strategy going with red. But okay, so center of the battlefield, sacrifice a creature unless an opponent has 3 or more poison counters. 6/6 for 4. Gain control of a creature. It gains haste. If equipped creature, you may destroy all equipment attached to that creature. Okay, so it's a way to kill things with equipments on them. The Seed Core. This is actually a cool card because you can add in one mana of any color to cast Phyrexian spells, which there's quite a bit of Phyrexian creature spells. And then target 1/1 creature gets +2/+1, and you can only activate it as 3 or more. So the Seed Core is kind of cool, and we've got that mountain. So 3 packs to go here. We have a Escaped Experiment. Lots of Phyrexian here, so that land is pretty relevant. Creature an opponent control gets -X/-0 when it attacks, or X number of artifacts you control, so it's going to at least dumb it down by 1, which is by itself. A 2/1 lifelinker, and whenever another artifact enters the battlefield under control, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. We kind of saw this with the Vigilant dude on the last set. So, but Lifelink's kind of cool, and they do synergize off each other. So the Thirsting Roots either proliferate for 1. That's kind of cool. That's a pretty good proliferate for like commander. Like that's a very low cost proliferate. Or you can search for a basic land. I mean, this is a pretty sweet card. Either fix what you need or proliferate. We have the Hazardous Blast, deal 1 damage to each creature, and creatures can't block. We've seen this card before, I think. We have Vraska's Fall. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker and gets a poison counter. Another sacrifice. I'm liking my black removal for sure. So far, definitely, I think we're going to be in black. So again, each opponent gets a poison counter and draw a card. So black-blue, loving black-blue, had a lot of ways to tap things down. The Mirror Custodian enters the battlefield, scry 2. Then each opponent may scry 1, so you get a little bit better scry. Got the Terramorphic Expanse. The Sheoldred's Head Cleaver. Toxic 2 with Menace. We have the Sylvok Battle Chair, +4/+4 and Trample. And huge equip cost on it. So we have, it puts a 2/2. So yeah, this is what they're calling the Colossal Dreadmaw equipment. The Tamiyo's Logbook. You draw a card. This ability costs 1 less for each artifact. And plus we have a lot of artifacts. I think this is it. So it's going to cost 5. Each other artifact, no. So it doesn't work off itself. Okay. The Nahiri's Sacrifice. Deals X damage divided among you choose a target creature. Number of creatures where X is the mana value of whatever you sacrifice. Sacrifice an artifact or creature. I am kind of liking my red a little bit. But look, again, we got an artifact on, colorless. Search the library for a basic, sphere, or locust land and reveal it and put it into your hand. Then shuffle. And then, so it's a way to keep your, keep getting a bunch of lands each turn. Or it becomes a 9/9 Phyrexian Construct artifact creature, loses all abilities, and gains indestructible and toxic 9. Activate if there are 9 or more lands with different names among the basic, sphere, and locust lands you control. This one might be a little bit too hard to actually make it work in limited. Then we have another Staff of Completion in the foil variety, so double Staff of Completions and a forest, and then a Koth token. Hopefully we can get the Koth that goes with it. For the Staff of Completion, I guess we're just kind of going to be a generic control deck with black because, the Staff of Completion can definitely get us there with, I don't know, paying through life, and proliferate. I guess just proliferating and slowly taxing our opponent once they have a toxic is going to be our strategy so far. We have another Basilica Shepherd, Prismatic Prism. That's cool. They reprinted the Prism. The Sporesinger again. The Free from Flash +2/+2 and put 2 oil counters on the creature. See these little Siphoners, this is our 3rd one. To get in that early toxic damage and just proliferate our opponent to death, that's definitely what I want to do. So, and then we have another proliferate card with the Anatomist. And then the Zealot's Conviction. So it gets +1/+0 on first strike as long as they have 3 or more poison counters. And we've got the Basilica that works in that. The Skull Bomb. Return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand and draw a card. That's kind of cool for, I guess, a 4-mana investment. Not bad at all. Another Ruthless Predation. The Necrosquito. 2 oil counters, because a +1 counter for each oil counter. Whenever another creature or artifact you control is put in the graveyard, you put an oil counter. So it can get bigger and bigger that way. Nope, this is Immobilizer. Can tap things down, which is actually pretty good with Proliferate. This is actually pretty sweet in limited because you can just tap down their threats and then keep proliferating. I think, again, that's the strategy with 2 staffs. We have the Kinkerbloom. You can sacrifice to destroy an artifact or enchantment or proliferates. And we could actually sort of go into green. I think so. With, now we see a Planeswalker not in the colors we want. So now red-green's looking pretty good after this. But this is a Phyrexian. We can actually add Phyrexian mana. All right, so we have Luca, Luca is completed. Luca Bound to Ruin. So the modes are add 2, spend this a mana ability to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures. Create a 3/3 green Phyrexian beast with toxic 1 is a -1. Or deal X damage divided among any number of target creatures or planeswalkers where X is the greatest power among creatures you control as you activated this ability. So they can't actually kill the card. I can't even see. That text is so hard to read, and the camera does not like to pick it up. But there's a Luca, which, I mean, could experiment with. Got the Phyrexian art in the... in all honesty, a red-green aggro seems super, super strong, too. Like so far, the white, I'm not too... Which is kind of cool, too. This is going to be used for League. We're already kind of... going 2 different routes here. We like this with really strong oil red-green aggro. Got a couple of haste cards. Got those cards that can't opponents can't block. I mean, they're never going to be able to block with 2 of them. And then, I mean, it's pretty good that way. Haven't been really impressed with white though. So I'm liking blue-black, and I'm also liking green-red. The Icarspit Basilisk, a 1/3 Death Toucher with Toxic. We have the Barb Batterfist, which puts in a 3/1 basically for 2 mana. A Corrupted, Flesh Gladiator with Corrupted. You can return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. Lose 1 life, only if they have 2 or more poison counters, which is okay. It's a good little chump blocker. Enters battlefield with an oil or move an oil counter. It becomes an artifact creature until the turn. It's a 5/5. It can be crewed. That's okay. It's decent. The Charge of Mites deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. You get 2 1/1 colorless mites with toxic 1s that can't block for 3 instant speed. Pretty good. Pretty good. Experimental Augury, Proliferate, and you get a look at the top 3 cards, put 1 in your hand and the rest on the bottom. That is super strong too. Experimental Augury has Proliferate and it does Anticipate, right? Not quite Anticipate, but it does. I mean, there's a 3 version of it. Yeah. Yeah, this card is strong. That is a strong common. Another Cultivator. Oil counter, remove an oil counter to untap a land. Actually, we haven't seen this, have we? This is a good way to ramp into stuff. We have the Planar Disruption, which is pacifism, but it also can go on a planeswalker. I think we completed the set of these. Got 1 of every color. And we get 2 oil counters and mill, which could be another way, I guess. Start playing mills X cards, where X number of oil counters on fun of progress. So you proliferate and mill them out? Could be another way to go. If I don't want to go the Toxic route. Double Strike Toxic 1. Toxic 2 enters the battlefield for target creature with mana file 3 or less. And we have Thrun Breaker of Silence, which really means we're red-green's looking super good. This spell can't be countered, trample, can't be the target of non-green spells your opponents control from non-green sources your opponents control, and has indestructible as long as your turn. So incredibly aggressive card. Yeah, that's the name of the game. There's 2 routes to go right now. The thing I don't like about this one is this set seems a lot more boring with less synergies. Like, the synergies are really, really narrow of what you're doing. Proliferate, oil counters, toxic. I thought Brothers War had a lot more, like, cool interactions and synergy you can do. But right off the bat, we have some strong, like, red-green that's going on. Like, it works. We have this really decent curve with, you know, these pretty good 5-drop/4-drop with Luca that can come out. We got some flexible cards that can proliferate. Proliferate also works pretty good with planeswalkers. We got plenty of fight to be our fight plus pumping. Even this Free from Flesh seems pretty good with oil counters. These are super aggressive too. Like, that's the simple route I'd go right now is red-green. If I were building this one for a pre-release pack or a pre-release event, I'd go red-green. This is going to get a lot more cool with the black-blue, proliferate, and you know, get a toxic damage in earlier, and with those, you know, staffs we have, just to slowly control the board and grind out our opponents with toxic. You only have to do it 10 times with the proliferate. That's not too hard to do, and that's the way to go. But obviously, the route that I would go at the moment would be red-green. Hopefully, you know, this dude can come in handy later on, and things can actually start being, I mean, just super good with oil counters too. Like, all these cards in red-green are coming out and doing something. And, like, this Annoyator is going to be killing stuff. We have a bunch of fight cards that are going to pump plus kill stuff. Yeah, it's super strong. Super, super strong with the red-green. That's the route I'd go. I'll kind of keep it tabs on this deck, hopefully, as time goes on with how this league progresses. Again, I highly, highly encourage you to go to your local game store and start one of these leagues. Basically that's kind of the rules we have is you just build a 40 card deck with your league deck. I think after like week 3 or week 4 we go to 60 cards. We really encourage people once they have a big enough pool to go over to 50 or 60 cards, and then by the end of it you kind of have like a pseudo block standard deck that actually is pretty decent. Like these are pretty good. I wouldn't feel too shabby going up against noobs with these decks, like, you know, people that are, you know, these are strong decks by the end of the league, and you get to play out the mechanics. Really enjoy the mechanics. Like the one thing that Magic the Gathering still has going for it, which I think is actually better than years in the past. Like I am a negative Nancy on this channel about the direction Magic has gone as far as the more commercial aspect of it, the more the corporate aspect of it. But as far as the game, I do have my complaints with the power creep with certain cards, and especially Commander and Pioneer Modern. But as far as Limited is concerned, and just like some of the way that they've pushed the envelope with some of these mechanics, they've done some very beautiful stuff with these last 2 years. I would say without that hell that was called Ikoria and Throne of Eldraine, and Theros, and then like that was awful. And then we had some boring Limited environments right before that, like Amonkhet and stuff. Those are super boring. These sets have been great. These sets have been so much fun for League and Draft and Constructed. Really think that you're living the glory years right now for Limited Magic, and so League's a great time to get in. Anyway, I've rambled. It's over 30 minutes long for this video, so hope you enjoyed this video. Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.